Hello everyone. Today's topic is gods as archetypes, Odin as the first archetype. An explanation from the perspective of psychology, mythology, and the archetypal approach without mysticism. Gods as archetypes, what this actually means. In modern psychological and cultural approach, gods are not external beings but archetypes, universal patterns of psychic behavior and experience that live within the collective inconscious. This approach was systematized by Carl Gustav Jung, who demonstrated that myths are the language of the psyche and gods are its characters. Archetype is a deep program. It influences our decision, emotion, reaction, and rules in life. Why different cultures have similar gods? Because the human psyche has a universal structure. Archetype examples of gods, psychological function, father authority, Zeus, Odin, leadership, law, responsibility, sake, Athena, thought, strategy, knowledge, clarity, warrior, Ares, Mars, aggression, boundaries, action, mother, Isis, Demeter, care, restoration, trickster, Loki, Hermes, chaos, change, creativity. The myths differ, the archetypes are the same. How archetypes live within a person? Archetypes manifest through recurring life scenarios, strong emotional reactions, rules in which we get stuck, conflicts, internal and external. For example, if the warrior archetype is overhated, aggression, burnout. If it is suppressed, passivity, fear of conflict. How to work with the god of archetypes? Practically. Awareness of the active archetype. First and foremost, ask yourself, what role am I constantly playing right now? Where in my life am I expressive or defensive? Which myths or gods attract me? What attracts you is already active in the psyche. Personification of the archetype. An archetype is easier to recognize through an image. Practice. Choose a god or goddess. Describe their character, power, and shadow. Ask the question, what do you want to teach me? This is a dialogue with a part of yourself, not worship. Integration, not suppression. The goal is balance, not destruction of the archetype. Examples: warrior, not fighting but clear boundaries. Trickster, not chaos but creativity. Father, not control but structure. Working with the shadow of the archetype. Every god has a light and a dark side. Archetype, light, shadow. Athena, wisdom, coldness. Ares, courage, destruction. Aphrodite, love, dependency. The shadow manifests when the archetype is unconscious. Why the modern person needs this? To understand inner conflicts, to exit repeating life scenarios, to manage energy rather than fight it, to develop personal wellness. Gods do not control the human being. A person who becomes conscious of them controls themselves. We are examining only the thesis, but deeply and expertly, using Odin as an example. When we work with gods as archetypes, we automatically work through that archetype within ourselves. And here is where this is true, where a hidden error lies, how it works specifically with Odin, and when automatic does not mean integrated. What working with a god as an archetype means. In psychological terms, this means contact between the ego and an autonomous archetypal structure of the psyche. Key points. An archetype is not an image. An archetype is an internal principle of organizing experience. The image of a god is a trigger. That is, you do not image Odin. You switch and curtain mode of the psyche. What happens automatically? A crucial distraction is required here. What happens automatically is activation. When you enter into contact with an archetype, a corresponding way of thinking is activated. The focus of attention changes. Affect rises. The interpretation of reality is restructured. In the case of Odin, the following are automatically activated: an observant called consciousness, interest in the hidden, the ultimate, the structural, readiness to pay a price for knowledge, distance from simple life. This is an indisputable fact of psychodynamics, but activation is not working through. This is the key point where the statement requires clarification. The mistake lies in the word worked through. Working through does not happen automatically. What happens automatically is being seized by archetype energy. Jung wrote, an activate archetype strives to live through the ego. What is without awareness, what occurs is not integration but inflation, identification, one-sidedness. How this looks specifically with Odin. This is a very revealing archetype. What actually awakens in you? When working with Odin, the following rises in the psyche: the function of seeing structure instead of story, readiness or abandon illusions, focus on meaning rather than comfort, orientation toward the end, death, fate, disillusion. Yes, this happens automatically. What happens without integration? If there is no reflection, Odin replaces other archetypes, makes consciousness cold, cuts one off from the body and feelings, creates the illusion I see more than others. Here the archetype is not worked through, but takes control. This is not I work with Odin, this is Odin living through me. When the statement becomes true, the statement becomes correct if we change the meaning of the word working through. The correct logic is this: when we work with gods as archetypes, we automatically activated the corresponding archetypal structures within ourselves. Working through occurs only when the ego can endure the contact, does not identify with the archetype, and integrates this force into life. What integration of Odin looks like? An integrated Odin is neither a mystic nor a knower. It is a person who sees the true and does not destroy others with it, knows about death and does not devalue life, can remain silent about knowledge, does not turn clarity into identity. Key marker: I can see and remain human. Logical conclusion: the statement is half true. Yes, working with a god as an archetype inevitably activates this archetype in the psyche. No, this does not mean automatic working through. Working through begins where distance appears between I and the archetype. So, the archetype of Odin, from the perspective of an archetype psychologist, not a mythologist or an esoterist. That is, what exactly is activated in the psyche? What force rises? What shadow appears? What traps exist? And how to integrate Odin without becoming possessed by him. What Odin is, not at the level of myth, but at the level of the psyche. Odin is an archetype of consciousness that pays a price for knowledge, not a god of wisdom in a soft sense, but the will to know that is dangerous to know, to see what destroys illusions, and to withstand the consequence of that seeing. Psychologically, This is the archetype of radical awareness, sacrifice of the ego for the sake of deeper truth, strategic thinking, contact with death, the end fate, shamanic passage between levels of the psyche. What part of you is activated when you work with Odin? Not abstractly, concrete inner functions. First, the observer consciousness. You stop simply living and being to see patterns, read motives, see the end already at the beginning. This can bring coldness, distance, alienation. 2. Radiance for loss. Odin is the only god who consciously mutilates himself for knowledge, the eye hanging on the tree. In the psyche, this manifests as readiness to lose an old identity, refusal of naivety, unwillingness to comfort oneself. The inner shaman, strategist, there appears attraction to symbols, signs, synchronicities, interest in rules, structures, systems, thinking not what is better now, but how to survive the long game. Why it is never easy with Odin? Because this is an anti-infantile archetype. Odin does not soothe, help gently, promise happiness. He strips away illusions, exposes existential fear, forces one to see one's own shadow. Therefore, after Odin's activation, it is common to experience loneliness, the feeling I am no longer like everyone else, coldness in relationships. This is a normal effect, not a sign that something went wrong. The shadow of Odin, the most dangerous part. This is the key point. If it is not recognized, archetypal possession occurs. Main shadow manifestation, mental inflation. I see more than others leads to devaluing people. Cold nihilism. You see everything but feel nothing. Life instead of living. Analysis instead of contact. Symbol instead of body. Manipulative wisdom. Using knowledge as power. Self-isolation as a spiritual path. This is the moment when Odin lives through you, rather than you working with the archetype. The key trap, identification. The greatest danger is not in darkness but in the truth. I am this archetype. This is my nature. I am just like this. This is an activated archetype, not your totality. A sign of health. You can step out of the state. You can be simple. You cannot now. You can be in the body, in emotion, in warmth. What an integrated Odin looks like, not mystically but humanly. Sign of integration. You see deeper, but you do not devalue. You know about death, but you value life more. You think strategically, but you do not lose empathy. You can remain silent about knowledge. You are not a teacher for everyone. The one main thing, you use knowledge to serve life, not to prove that you are right. A practical formula for working with Odin. Name the function, not the name. Not I am with Odin, but clear vision, strategy, truth, willingness to pay the price. 2. Balance with the opposite. Odin always needs Loki, vitality, irony, or Freyr, body, joy, simplicity, or human closeness without analysis. 3. Grounding in the body. Without the body, Odin becomes destructive. Movement, physical work, breathing, contact. 4. A control question. Ask yourself regularly. Where I am I cold instead of honest? Where do I know instead of feel? Where do I hide fear behind wisdom? Precis formulation of the initial statement. In the context of Odin, it sounds like this. By working with Odin as an archetype, I activate within myself the power of radical seeing and self-sacrifice for the sake of truth. This becomes working through only when I integrate this power in human life without identifying with it and without losing connection with the body, empathy, and simplicity. Now I finish. You can find a practice for working through the ODIN archetype on my YouTube and Telegram channel. Goodbye, everyone.